anyway, I want to talk a little bit about this design, or the design of this game. Um, I talk a lot about like choice and consequence and stuff like that. I talked about specific design principles for certain things when it came to KOTOR 2 or like just RPGs in general. But I think this game is a very, very fine example of the execution of an RPG. It's not expansive. It's not open world. It's not exploration. Isn't even really a factor at all. Not in the traditional sense. I do think that there is a gameplay section that could qualify as exploration, though you are on rails. It's not free roam exploration, but you do get to see a good deal of the setting, and the Oregon Trail-esque section is slow-paced enough that I think you do get a decent amount of exploration, but you don't get to create a character, but that's alright, because you're given a great amount of freedom with the character that you do play. And the consequential aspects of that freedom are actually very, very dire, which is the way that it should be, in my opinion. You shouldn't be making decisions in RPGs that ultimately don't matter. That's not the way that RPGs should be constructed or made. As a matter of fact, that's kind of the point of them in general. And I've seen people argue that games that don't have meaningful consequences, games that don't allow you to affect their story in meaningful ways, are not RPGs. And I would agree with that to a certain extent, because playing a role in a game world, in a story, it should allow for you to affect that world and that story. But not in ways that make the game world feel flimsy and artificial, like becoming the guild master of every guild, for instance. If we're going to continue to shit on Bethesda games, which we should. No one should ever stop doing that. But right from the beginning of this game, okay, the little bit with Ubin at the start when you're playing as Ubin is pretty much an introduction to the game. There's not too much, as far as I know, that can play out so differently. You've given a bit of consequence in like the way that the people of Strand react to you when you start there, right? But then you're thrown into Rook's position and you're fleeing Skogar. You have to make tough decisions immediately. Do you send Egil and Nalette to do this, or do you hold them back? Egil can die before you leave Skogar. I don't know if people knew that, but you can lose a party member that early. As a matter of fact, the reason they had Vognir, the Varl from way back, the heir to the throne before Hakon, die, was to drive home the point that you can lose anybody at any point. You lose Vognir before you even get to use him. And this trend continues throughout the entire game. And one thing that you'll notice, which is a particular design decision that I've talked about before on stream, actually, but also that is just very interesting to me, is there's no real way to tell which dialogue option is going to result in which thing. I mean, you can get a general idea from most situations, but a lot of times you can't. You just kind of have to do what you think will get you the best result. And it's not always clear what that is. For instance, there was the decision with Yrsa when I was going through the game, that archer who had the flaming arrows way, way back. I thought the best decision would be to have her set a trap and burn the forest and lure the dredge into the forest. That ended up with her dying. And I had no way to know that was what was going to happen. I thought she would be safe with it, and but no. There's the potential death of Gunnulf, who is a major pillar of the party at that point. And a lot of people complain that like major members of your party can be just... I'm trying to avoid the rays of the sun, but the major members of your party can be just yeeted out of existence by a decision. But I feel like the game gives you enough tools that it's not really that... I don't know, the game isn't so punishing that you're ever in a situation where you lose everyone and you just... due to story reasons. Like, you might have party members be injured and not want to send them into combat again or something, but you're never in a position where you're out of options completely. There's always characters you can level up. There's characters that have high enough bases that it's all good. And there's choice and consequences written all over this game, and it's so meaningful and impactful every time, because not only are you affecting your own party, but you're affecting the world around you as well. You encounter people who are suffering, and you can steal from them, you can help them. But the game gives you more reason than any I've ever seen to want to steal from people who are already hurting, because you're maybe starving. Maybe as much as they're suffering, you're suffering worse. And everything's going to fall apart if you don't. You have to think about what kind of leader you're going to be a lot more than most games like this, I feel like. And one of the best examples of this is Einertoft, right? What a moral dilemma, if there ever was one. Holy fucking shit, right? Einertoft is the giant capital, where the bridge is. I don't know if I can... Hang on. I really want to see just... They crowdfunded for it, but also used their own savings to start. I watched a lot of... They beat their goal for the game by like 10 times. Okay, thank you for telling me that, actually. It's good to see you. I'm trying to go through like my thoughts on the game and the design and everything. So Einertoft, the bridge, right? I'm sure Disoriented will agree that was a very tough decision to make. Ultimately, I decided to destroy the bridge. But I love Einertoft as a conundrum, both because of how difficult it is and how open-ended it is, because you can just leave the city. You have the option to just leave the city, abandon the Varl to the oncoming dredge. Don't worry about the bridge, just get out of there. You have the option to, without the Varl King, without Jorunder's permission, just destroy the bridge with Avend. Which even that is difficult to do. That battle is tough. I had to reset to redo it, because that was the only battle I think I reset the game for. Because I wasn't going to decide to destroy the bridge and then fail to do it. That's not something I was going to do. And actually the hardest way forward is convincing the Varl King, which you actually can do. Convince him to destroy the bridge. The way you do that is by fighting the dredge on the bridge for 3 days in a row, which is a nightmare. I apparently did it on my first playthrough, but I was not prepared to do that this time. I didn't even know that was an option. I forgot. And that's probably the hardest thing possible, because convincing him is not as simple as going to him and telling him, you need to do this, you need to do this, and then like figuring out the right way to talk him down. No, you have to fight a long and protracted, brutal conflict, and then he'll finally relent and let you destroy the bridge. But even then, destroying the bridge is like in the best possible outcome, where you get his permission to destroy the bridge, and the Varl are generally accepting of that outcome despite, not liking it. The bridge is a cultural artifact. It's like it represents almost the Varl themselves, as kind of the city does, but like the bridge itself is a marvel. It's of engineering, right? The Varl in their current numbers wouldn't be capable of something like that, I think. And the Varl are dying. They're not capable of reproducing either. So you're destroying a cultural artifact. It's like a signifier of the Varl's existence. Like, and so many of them die at Einertoft, because here's the thing, none of this matters anyway, because they're all still going to die. So it's perfect. It's all perfect. Maybe the only morally correct thing to do is just leave, because the Varl there are doomed anyway, and you don't destroy the bridge that way. So at least their cultural artifact, their relic of their now dead basically race, is still intact. But it feels so wrong when you're doing it. Moving on. I've forgotten how actually good in regards to choice and consequence Borsgard was, because it really makes you feel every single day. This game is really good about that, like being paced out at such a deliberate way, and the Oregon Trail segments are a good example of that. But I never really realized how well each of the individual cities is as well. Like, I really started to feel it when I got to Sigerholm, and the game makes you feel each individual day pass because you're losing supplies constantly, and you think maybe this will be the day Juno gets here. Maybe this will be the day Juno gets here. Eventually you realize she's never coming, hopefully sooner than later, but hey, maybe not. But yeah, it's so deliberately paced in that way. And the last city, Borisgard, every single day you have a choice, and you have so many different options, and every single one feels like it could be the right thing to do. Yeah, of course I want to help Ivor keep the dredge at bay. Of course I want to find supplies for my people, and of course I want to do this and that and this and that, but I don't know, you have to pick one, and that's all you can do for the day. And it's great. And I'm sure if I had made different choices, my caravan wouldn't have split the way that it did and disbanded. I lost like 100 clansmen because of that. I don't know what that actually affected, but perhaps things would have played out somewhat differently. And then ultimately you get to make the decision. You get to sacrifice either your daughter or yourself. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you that that changes who you play as in going forward, because it's not like, I mean, there are new characters that you get to play as in Banner Saga 2, but it's not like it's exclusively new characters. Yeah, actually, congratulations, Disoriented. I think you might have done the only like actually fully morally right thing. Is, you know, just leave. It's what the Varl want you to do ultimately, and it'll save more people in your caravan. They're doomed anyway, most of them. I know, it feels horrible, but I think it actually has possibly the best outcome. And that's amazing. That's incredible. So many of the game's decisions feel like that, but I feel like the bridge is like an encapsulation. It's like the crown jewel of this game's design philosophy when it comes to choice and consequence. And then, like, Borisgard is just the icing on top of that. It's just like, I'm mixing my metaphors so much here, but I feel like it's comprehensible. Anyway, Borisgard is just like another thing on top of that. Like, it just adds to it at that point. Like, it's already peaked, and now it's just continuing to stay at that peak, you know? And now Borisgard is just, I don't know, it's such a trade-off because you want to get supplies, you want to deal with the riots, because the riots eventually start to happen. Nothing feels right there. Nothing feels wrong either. It's like, it's crazy. And this is also like reflected in even like the combat system of the game, right? Because there's no chance to hit. I harped on that like maybe in my first stream, maybe a little bit since then, but there's no chance to hit at all. There's chance to dodge, but you have to opt into that. And opting into that means that you don't get to use other items because you have to equip a chance to dodge item. It makes the whole thing feel, well, it's not. The game is not luck-based at all, except in very, very rare instances when it is. And that's items and maybe some abilities and like armor and strength differentials, but you should never be attacking into a strength differential unless like you have no other choice or you're in a pinch or something. So it's so deterministic in every single way, and like I don't know if it seems like that was a design pillar and of the combat as well, and the combat is so just simplistic. It's both simple and complex in the way that it works. Like there's a lot of interplay between everything. I think there's a lot of stats that in and of themselves represent very simple concepts, but the interplay between them is very engaging. And the way that you utilize them is what determines your success, as opposed to whether or not something works. And that seems like because what determines whether or not something works is your own ability to make something work, as opposed to a percent to hit chance, which is so much more satisfying to play, in my opinion. But it's also why this game couldn't have like permadeath in combat all the time, like something like Fire Emblem does, because you rely on like it's just a given that some of your units are going to fall in battle. Like it's just going to happen. There's no way for that not to happen. And that's part of like on some level, even sacrificing certain units is part of the determinism. Like you might want to have certain units die over other ones so that you can have certain ones longer and use their talents longer. And that's another viable strategy. So it's so open-ended in both combat and story, like its approach. And it's so replayable because of that as well. Your party could change from one game to the next just based on like if you decided to play like, I'm going to go with only the top decision this time, you could end up with like a completely different party throughout all 3 games. And like, you know, like then if you'd gone with like, oh, middle decision this time, and like, it's just incredible how they make you want to suffer. This is what good RPGs do, man. They make you want to keep going through and keep seeing what happens. And your effects on the world can't just be good. Sometimes they are. And like the glimmers of hope that this game gives you are what it's all about. Like, I don't know. And Alette and Rook's dilemma at the very end is kind of almost the example, like the theme of that coming through. And like, I don't know, so many games are about this, but so few actually make you feel it in the way that this does. Like the glimmers of hope. Alette is hopeless at the end of the game, completely hopeless, that she feels like she might as well just die. Like, all of the let me take the shot, I'm a better archer, that may be true, and that may be what she thinks is the best way to convince Rook, but I don't know, it really seems like she has a bit of a death wish at that point. But I don't know, Rook sacrificing himself just for like the base desire that's maybe some sort of hope within her to still live. Like, I don't know. Are you following? Is anyone following what that means? What I'm saying there? Like, giving her that relief, that sense of hope to carry on. Like, no, you get to live. Even though, you know, the person who takes this role technically could be you and maybe even should be you. And that person will also die. It's going to be me because I want you to live. And like, that's the hope. That's like the bonds and all that. The unity of the caravan and what everybody means to each other. Or alternatively, you sacrifice Alette, and I don't know. I know that Rook gets a lot darker if you let him survive to the second game. He becomes a shell of a man, basically. And that's exactly, like, this game, the consequences of your decisions extend, like, they happen on multiple levels, basically. Because there's your immediate effect on the world. People die because of your decisions. There's the emotional effect on yourself. Like, doing all this stuff is not... I don't know if people can see that I'm playing with shit with my hands. I should probably stop doing that. Doing all this shit can't be good for Rook's psyche either, right? Like, never mind the effect on his daughter, like, seeing your father do all this, but, like, I don't know, stealing from people who need it, like, killing people who maybe don't deserve it. All of this weighs heavily on him as well. And I mean, that's basically it. You come across these things where there's no clear answer. Like the Mogan and Hogan versus their village is a good example. Like, hey, Mogan and Hogan and a bunch of people like them want to leave the village, but there's a whole group of people who don't want them to because the village feels like they can't survive without them. It's like, what do? Well, you can help one side or the other. You can leave. Those are the options. I guess you could try to convince them to let them go peacefully. I don't think that works, though. I think that fails if that's an option. And every single decision is like that. When it comes to dealing with conflicts between people, is like, it seems like maybe somebody's in the right. Like, I feel like that ultimately Hogan and Mogan, they should be allowed to leave if they want to, and the elders or the village chieftain trying to prevent them I would say he's in the wrong. But all the people with him, they're just trying to, as far as they know, help their village survive. They're following their chieftain's orders, and I don't know, but we kill them. We kill all of them. You're already playing Rook as a shell of a man. It's gonna be rough. Oh, you sacrificed the lad? Dude. You gotta let me know. I forget how it goes if you do that. And then finally, like, it's not just, of course, character development happens from it. Your effect on the world and the people beyond your caravan who don't really necessarily develop as characters, but could die or could be stolen from or could lose all their supplies as a result of something you do, or could be destroyed by the dredge because Belor was following you and you left them without anything to defend themselves with. But also your companions can die through your actions, of course, as I've mentioned multiple times. And one of the things that I think the game does is it really makes you want to live with the consequences, because backtracking really feels pretty uniquely bad in a game where one of the defining sections is literally a caravan that slowly crawls across the screen to give you a sense of atmosphere. Replaying a part of this game, not because you're replaying the game, but because you fucked something up and you want to replay it, like you feel like that urge is immediately overcome by a stronger urge to not do that and not go back, because it feels like physically going back. So yeah, I don't know. And of course the art design is immaculate. I just love this game. It's incredible. And I wish I could just start playing the second one right now. But I can't. Her plea for agency and opportunity was so genuine. I do believe she's the better shot, and I just couldn't refuse her. Yeah, no, I see that argument as well. And that's also one of the themes of the game as well, is her developing as a person, becoming an individual. But I think that, I don't know. Another aspect of her plea to Rook as a leader of the caravan, like as opposed to her father, is that like it's a very like a utilitarian thing, like whatever's best for the caravan. And Rook choosing to sacrifice himself rather than go with what would necessarily be the best outcome for success is kind of like something, that's living as an individual. It's like showing her that living as an individual may mean being a leader to this caravan, but it also means being an individual, not always being beholden to what's best to them. Stepping up if it means protecting what's most important to me, which is you, my daughter. But no, I think that either interpretation is valid. I think that ultimately there's no right answer there, you know? Thank you. Thank you. I wish more people could see me spitting, man. I feel like I'm really on tonight. I am actually going to end stream soon, unfortunately, though, because I want to, like, take a break, have dinner. You like the take I'm giving? I think I'm pretty much done. If I think, I don't know, man. Like, I really want to do, like, some reviews at some point of, like, the games that I've played. Maybe I'll do, like, a scripted review of this game or something someday. But it would be good to play it again. It would be good to play through the second one, the third one as well. It's a very hard decision. I like that, but it's sad. Yeah, it is a very hard decision. So many games would give you a way out, too. A way to have both people live, but there's none of that here. I don't know. I just feel like every single design decision made from this game, from the Oregon Trail-esque travel segments to the combat to the story segments, is just all perfectly honed in on allowing you the most agency possible, which seems ironic because the game's story is almost literally on rails. Like, it's only not because it's not a train. But you're traveling in one direction. You have like the option at one point to take a fork in the road in one way or the other, but that's about the options of like exploration you get. But it doesn't really matter because at every single other aspect of the game, you're given so much choice that it's overwhelming at some points. It's literally overwhelming. I think the people who really appreciate games that give you choice and consequence should not sleep on this. Um, as long as you can deal with the combat, because that's not for everyone. I love it, but it's not for everyone. But I think it's perfect. I think everything about it is. And I don't know. I know it's popular, but it's not nearly as popular as it should be. And I wish there were more games like it. Like this concept is so ripe for explanation. You know, you can make a game about a ship that does the same sort of travel mechanics and has the same sort of combat, even, and like the same survival mechanics with supplies and all that, and give yourself the same amount of choice. Maybe you start as a member of a navy, but you could become a pirate at some point, or you could become, you know, like, this could be a genre. This could be a subgenre of RPGs in and of itself. The Banner Saga asks, the Banner asks, the Banner likes, I don't know. An airship, even. Like, literally just change the vehicle and you've completely changed the setting. And now you can build a whole setting and put a game like this in it. And, like, the engine is so solid that I really think it could work with anything. Well, yeah, right? Because this concept of game lends itself so well to, like, any setting you want to put it in. As long as the setting is well developed and the story is good, you're golden. I don't know why Twitch auto emotes. I'm not sure about that. I don't know. Alright. It's 5 o'clock. I think I'm going to end stream for now, but I will be back later tonight to play Disco Elysium. For the first time. Never played that before. I'm very excited. I've been waiting to play it. I've been looking forward to it for years now. But for now, peace.